Okay, welcome to class. First thing I'm going to do is share my screen as usual. And here are the class notes. Here we are today, February 2nd. We know we're working on essay number 3, but I made some changes in the schedule, so I want you to be aware of that. First of all, we will meet on Tuesday, and that will be our last Zoom class. But what I've done is I've eliminated the 4th essay. So the 3rd essay that you're working on now will be your last essay. The first draft I'm saying is due February 9th, a week from now. And then the second draft I'm saying due February 14th, which is the last day of classes. So this project that you're working on now, this essay number 3 is really very important. And you definitely need to have 3 sources in addition to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And you have a little bit of time to work on that. If there's somebody out there, no, I don't think anybody here today, but anybody out there who really wants to do a 4th essay to bring up their grade, I don't see anybody in that circumstance here today, then that will be okay too. But as I'm recording this, I just wanted to say that all out loud. Let me just stop the share for a minute. Oh, yes, more students are here. Very good. So you're all working on essay number 3, and some of you are actually still working on essay number 2, and you know who you are, so I won't call you out. But what you need to do for sure is to get me, I'm just checking while we're talking, get me your essay number 2 as well. So if you haven't yet handed in essay number 2, please do so. The rest of you are working on essay number 3, and that's good. And as I said, I've extended the dates for that, so you have a little bit more time to work on it. Make that a good essay. So let me just ask if anybody has any questions about essay number 3. Anybody want to share what they're working on? Would you like to see a sample of essay number 3 and go through essay number 3 that's been submitted? Yes, okay, we'll do that. Thank you for answering. All right, so let me make sure I have that up there on the screen. Okay, and so she's not actually here at the moment, but that's okay. So let me call that one up and take a look at that one. Here's an essay from one of your classmates, and I'll go through it with you. First of all, I just want to show you this is the proper heading for the MLA format. Those of you who will have to do APA in the future, there'll be a cover page. It'll be a slightly different format, so you'll need to get used to that. The only thing that's missing here is that in the right-hand corner, up on the right-hand side, there really should be a header. See if I can get in there. There we go. A header with the student's last name, your last name, and then the page number. And you can use the page number function to put in the page number so that it changes with each page. I'm actually looking for that now. Here it is, page number. And they let you put the page number in a certain place. You can have it at the top of the page on the right, which is where it says, and you just go okay. And as you can see right here, student's last name and the page number. And if we scroll down, you'll see student's last name, page number again. And of course, if there's a 3rd page, same thing. So just be aware that that's the proper way to do the MLA formatting, is to not only have your information here on the first page, but also to have your last name and the page number in the right-hand corner. So everybody, try to do that for your essay number 3. Also, just so you're aware, lots of teachers will pay particular attention to the formatting, especially later on when you write longer papers. They may not read every word that you've written, but they'll certainly take a look to see if you've got the formatting down correct. Usually they figure if you can get the formatting down, you can get other things correct as well. So that formatting can be important, more important than you might expect. So be aware of that. Okay, let's take a look at this essay. Here's the title, which is just fine. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a vision expressed in an act that was elaborated by representatives from all over the world in order to protect human rights. Very nice thesis statement. It's a vision. Of course, it's not a law. It's not established as anything that people really have to adhere to. It's a vision. It's an idea. Just like the Declaration of Independence declared independence and declared the inalienable rights, but nobody had these rights yet. So in that sense, it's a vision, and an act, meaning an action they're taking, which is writing this declaration, making this declaration. Very nice beginning statement. This declaration was proclaimed and approved by the General Assembly of the United Nations on December 10th, 1948. Now, since it's a particular declaration that you're talking about, probably better off to capitalize it like that. In this extraordinary document, the authors reflect on the rights and freedom to which every human being belongs, and with this they can aspire to be non-transferable and under conditions of equity. It's a little tricky here. First, I want to show you one thing. Notice that introductory statement, in this extraordinary document, and notice that word, extraordinary. This is a value judgment by the author, by the student, about the document. Here is the student's opinion being expressed, not I think this is an extraordinary document, but by just calling the document, labeling the document as extraordinary, the opinion of the reader comes through. But it comes through as a statement of fact in the third person, right? It doesn't say I think, anything like that. And so in this way, the author, the student, is giving the student's opinion, expressing the value of the document that the student thinks the document has without having to use that first person or second person. It's a good use of the third person. So you will find this kind of stuff when you read other articles later on in your career and you read things that people have written. Watch out for these kinds of value judgments that the author of the article or the author of the book or whatever it is that you're reading, what the author puts in there, because that words like this and opinions like this will certainly appear in the things that you write, because the author wants you to accept that as fact, and therefore it's stated in the third person. Here, the authors reflect on the rights and, I guess, freedoms, because I guess there are more than one types of freedom, to which every human being, now it's not to which every human being belongs, so I would just question that word there. It's really whichever human being should have. I don't know, maybe that's what she meant to say, should have. So it makes it, so when I do this kind of correction, I'm guessing as to what the author really means, right? Here, cross that one out. And with this, they can aspire to be non-transferable and under the conditions of equity. So you see that we don't know what the antecedent, what that they is referring to. Is it referring to the authors? Is it referring to the rights and freedoms? Is it referring to every human being? It's not clear. Notice that? So there's a word, there's something that really should be corrected. And I believe she means the rights and freedoms, because it's the rights and freedoms that would be non-transferable and exist under conditions of equality. We talked about that last time, all that equality. But I would clarify, I would ask the student to clarify what that word they means, because it's a little, it makes it, the reader has to struggle a little bit to figure out what exactly the sentence means, and we don't want that. The Declaration is a way of analyzing and measuring the good and the bad to protect human beings and build a just and equitable future for all. Okay, the Declaration contains 30 rights and freedoms that belong to all people and that no one can take away from them. That's that idea of inalienability that we get from the Declaration of Independence. Among them, meaning among the rights, there are three essential ones, such as the right to asylum, the right to presumption of innocence, and international crimes, and the right to education. So we just need a comma right in there, because before we do that, for example, actually, both sides for the for example, just like that. Very good. Here are the three that the student is going to talk about. Firstly, the right to asylum. Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights states that everyone has the right and seek asylum. So, the right to asylum. So this is not actually, this part makes it tricky to read the sentence. Some of you have done that. You state the first idea that you're going to talk about as if it were a complete sentence. It's really not. I know this is the sentence right here. So here is expressed in, at work is expressed in Article 14, which states, comma, which states. So these are just little grammatical errors to make the sentence more clear. Refugee status and the granting of political asylum will be carried out in accordance with international treaties. For example, intra-family violence is defined as any behavior that occurs within the family group where there is a physical, psychological, or sexual harm, threats, offense, or any other form of aggression by a member of the family group. Now, that sounds like some information that the student found through her or his research, right? Her in this case. And you would want to document that. You would want to, if you got a definition like that, this is a definition of intrafamily violence. You got a definition like that from the internet or from some source or article that you read, you would want to put the source of that here. So I would say, cite your source here. Because I would think that came from a source. And it should come from a source. In other words, you're not going to make up that kind of definition of what intrafamily violence is. That's the kind of thing that you would want to use a source to define. However, the person suffering this type of damage in their home can leave their country and ask protection in another country, since their life is in danger both physically and mentally. In this way, the granting of asylum for this person is a way of protecting their life. Very true. Instead of since, really what the student means is because, or the word as. We should save that since. I know I've made this correction many times. Save that word since for time, since last week, since they were suffering violence. So save that for time and use the because or the as in place of that. So here we have a very nice first paragraph that talks about the right to asylum, that gives an example from the research. As I said, this could be cited here. And that's one of the tricky things that you're doing. You're doing research to find more information about your topic, and often to find examples that you can use in your essays to explain the right that you're talking about, or the freedom that you're discussing, or whatever the issue is that you're discussing. And sometimes you're going to be given an example that shows how it's not being given, the right is not being given to people, and sometimes you'll be showing how it is being given to people. But in any case, that's what the research is all about. That's why I expect that probably some research was done here. Let's take a look quickly at the works cited and see what's down there in the works cited. There we are. Okay, so there are three different sources here. Here's the title for the work cited. It's correctly put there with the capital W and the capital C. Not all of you, many of you need to work on your MLA works cited format. So for this essay, you really should try to make it correct. With capital W, capital C, and that little S there, works, meaning different documents, more than one that you've referenced, that you've cited, that you've referred to. And here we have the three items, only there's a problem. Maybe some of you see it. First of all, one aspect of this is that the list should be in hanging indent format. Almost got that right. Okay, and that means, yeah, like this. That means that an entry like this one should really look like this. That's the hanging indent format, where the first line is flush to the margin and the second line is indented. So instead of this, we should have that. And then the other problem here is these two sources are not in proper MLA format. Use MLA format for electronic sources. That's what you need to do here. This is simply, only thing that we have here are the URLs. We don't have all the information related to the URL. And so I'm just going to quickly go over to where I have this information recorded and come back. And then usually what I say is go here for MLA assistance. And this website is the Purdue OWL, which I've shown you. And that's where you can find the proper way to cite these sources. Let's just go to one of these sources. Probably wind up losing you, so I'm gonna have to stop the share and start the share again. So let's stop the share and come back and bring it up again. Here it is. Okay, this is where clicking on that, this is the site that I reached when I clicked on that URL that was in the works cited there. And you can see this page is called United for Work for Human Rights. And we can, I don't want to subscribe. Well, let's just scroll down to the bottom. Sometimes they give you a citation for this site, but I don't see anything here. So there's no given citation. But really, this is the organization, United for Human Rights. And then the page is called either Voices for Human Rights or Human Rights Organizations. So when we go to our works cited page right here, that was this one. This really should be United for Human Rights. That should be the way this is listed, because that was either the name of the page or the name of the organization, whichever came first. It was, yeah, that's the author. So human rights, it should be Human Rights Organizations. Oh, I'm coming back to you. Just give me 1 second. I'm in the wrong window. Okay. So United for Human Rights, Human Rights Organizations, which is the title of the page. Obviously, my typing leaves something to be desired. Okay. And then, oh, didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Gotta go back again. Okay. Here we are. Gotta be careful not to do that. So United for Human Rights Organizations, and then here we are. This needs to be, another thing that we need here, this needs to be double spaced. I missed that the first time around. So this would need to be double spaced. There we are. And then that hanging indent like that. And then of course, you usually put down when you are at the site. Because the internet changes, right? So this would be the proper way to put in a citation for the works cited page. So it would go up here, I suppose. after that one. And then this one would have to be put in the proper format as well. So, very important to try to get your works cited page done properly. And if you get your sources from the library, which is what I recommend, then they will give you the proper citation format for your works cited page. It makes this whole thing a lot easier when you do that, which is one of the reasons I recommend going to the library. Even if you find an article online, often you can find it also in the library or something similar in the library using the keywords, and then you can easily get the works cited citation that you need in order to create your works cited page. So think about that. Now let's go back to the essay up here. Second paragraph. Secondly, Article 11 affirms that every human being is innocent until proven otherwise. Very good. And then another sentence. Everyone has fundamental rights and freedoms regardless of race, color, language, social, economic position, or sex. Now you notice there's two sentences here. They're connected with a semicolon. That's correct. It is correct to connect two sentences with a semicolon, but this second sentence really should not be capitalized because of that semicolon right there. So here's one sentence, and then here's the other sentence, and they're correctly put together with a semicolon. In the same way, you'll notice that introductory words followed by a comma, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. In the same way, every human being has the right to life, liberty, and legal certainty. So instead of quoting, remember it says life, liberty, and security, personal security is what it says in the actual declaration. She changed it to life, liberty, and legal certainty, which is just fine, just fine. The non-retroactivity of the law. So retroactivity means that you would go back in time. And we talked about this the other day. If I commit a crime today and the fine is $1, and tomorrow they change the fine to $1,000, and now it's tomorrow, they can't go back and say, well, you committed that crime, so we're going to now fine you $1,000. That would be retroactive. So here, the non-retroactivity of the law implies that no one can be sentenced for acts or omissions that were lawful when they were committed according to national and international law, which also means that an act was punishable by a specific penalty when it was committed. That's what I was just talking about. So she's expressed the thought that was in that article in her own words in a very, very nice way. It's possible that this was obtained from a source, this sort of definition here, or not. Student could certainly have used those words herself. If it had been obtained from a source, you would want to cite that source there. Unfortunately, this right has not been respected, and on the contrary, it has been violated. Because today there are irregularities. For example, any person at any time can denounce another person without having sufficient evidence to accuse him of a crime. Interesting. For instance, the American football player, Orlando Bowen, here's an example, certainly could have come from, just need the commas in here, certainly could have come from research, himself was arrested and beaten by the police. Additionally, they put drugs in his car to incriminate him. However, the player's lawyers managed to do a great job and showed it was all a lie, and that the reason for staining his name was because he was an Afro-American athlete. Okay, so this is an example of both retroactive, of trying to incriminate someone by denouncing them, and at the same time, it's an example of the legal system actually playing out correctly because the lawyers were able to do a great job and managed to get him off. Here, this great job, this is another one of those very subtle opinions that's put in here by the writer. See that? Because of the word great, right? The word great is a value judgment by the author. You might not notice it because they did do a fine job in getting the person off. They did the job they're supposed to do, but that word great just is a little stronger of a qualification of what that job is all about. And additionally, they put him in his car to incriminate. However, The players' lawyers managed to do a great job and show that it was all a lie and that the reason for staining his name was okay. It's correct. Good job. Thirdly, Article 26 guarantees that everyone has the right to education and that it must be free. Education is a very important factor in the life of all human beings since it contributes to the development of human personality and the strengthening of respect, creating tolerance among people, and as a result, they would have more peaceful societies. This also sounds a little bit like it could have come from a source. And if it did come from a source, then it should be cited. But once again, there's no reason to think that the student didn't write this on her own. But you might find this kind of statement in your own research from some article that you've read, and use that in your writing, and then you would cite the source. For example, for children and adolescents whose parents do not have resources to pay for the children's education, these parents can choose to take advantage of the right that the government gives them to access free education, since this is a universal right to which everyone has access. I would just be careful about repeating the words in the sentence, right? But okay. And once more, this since is really a because or an as. See how that can happen more than once in the essay. And here again, you have examples. This is not a specific example, but up here with Orlando Brown, it's a specific example. So perhaps the student got this information from a source. And so then you would, if from a source, cite the source. Just putting that in there as a reminder to do that. In conclusion, the power of the Universal Declaration inspires humanity to continue working on human rights, which are essential components in the lives of all people. Thanks to them, broad development is promoted, thus providing them with guarantees such as protection, justice, freedom, education, among others, in an equitable way, while all humans live fully, that they continue to evolve. Oh, this is long sentence that does a few confusing things. So here, see this them? This them, I believe, are the human rights. And then this them, whoops, over here, I think is all people. But you see how putting the two pronouns in there, them and them, can be confusing? You want to avoid that kind of thing. Here, thus providing here, people, right? It's very simple to fix something like this. You just put in a word that clarifies what that pronoun is actually referring to. Instead of them, you could say these rights, just for example. And then the writing is much more clear, much more precise, and much more understandable and easier for the reader to follow. And here, I think we need a new sentence. At this point, the sentence really is very long and has a lot of ideas in it. So you could just start a new sentence there. And then it's a little confusing, new sentence, and somewhat confusing. So I would ask that to be clarified, right? Just to clarify that a little bit. If you get that kind of feedback from me, it means I don't quite understand exactly what you're saying. And this is the part right there. This is the part right there that's confusing. Needs to be clarified. Sometimes this happens at the end of the essay because you've written the whole essay and you're tired, just want to finish. So some words sneak in there that aren't actually what you want to say. So going back and reviewing what you've written and rereading it, even if you have a little time between the time that you write it and then the time that you review it, it can be really, really helpful to you. But all in all, pretty good essay. few minor issues in here with language. I see the three sources down here, but I don't see the sources cited up here. So once again, I would indicate cite the sources in the essay. Right? You want to make sure that you're actually using those sources in the essay itself. There we go. Okay. So hopefully that was a little bit helpful to everybody. Anybody want to make a comment? Anybody want to share what they're working on?
Thank you for sharing. It's very helpful.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Does anybody want, you want to see one more?
Sure. I mean, I don't know about them, but I do want to see more.
We'll do one more.
I do. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, I do, Professor. I do.
I do
I
as
need to
well.
see one more.
Okay.
Yay,
I do,
here.
Professor.
I got it. I got it. It does get a little tedious sometimes. So that's why I ask, because sometimes people are quite familiar with what they need to do, and they don't really feel that it needs to be repeated over and over again. But it's fine. I'll just bring one up. Hang on one second. And I have a couple here. Let's see. Let's see this one here. Oh, here we go. There it is. All right. So now I'll share the screen, put this one up here. This is from a student in my other class. You know, I have two classes. I have one at 2:15 and one at 5:45. So here we are. Hopefully you can see this one. Notice here, we don't have the proper MLA title page. So I'm just going to say use MLA format for the title page. And once again, this is going to be, this third essay is going to be really the culmination of what you've put together for this term. So try to get all these little things correct, not only as the title, but I'm looking for the header. There it is. Let's get the header in properly with the student's last name.
I'm sorry, can you do that part slowly, like to start off with the header, because that's where I'm kind of like just trying to wiggle the words in the middle.
I'm going back. Okay, if I can do it. Sometimes Word is a little tricky. Okay, so it starts out like this, yes? And then I'm going to put in, so what the student needs in here is the class, oops, the class and the date and the professor's name, right? Those things should go in here as part of the heading, like that. And I'm just going to say here, use MLA format for title page, just like that. Okay. Oops. And then in this area up here, this is called the header, in this blank space above the first line. And if I double click in that empty space, yes, then you can see this light blue line. See, it says header, and this light blue line appears, and then there's this area up here that you can type in. And in this particular case, I'm going to go back to the home. I'm going to put everything to the right-hand side over there. And what goes in here is the student's, your last name, the student's last name, and then the page number. And there's actually a page number function in the header. Here, when we click on the menu that says header and footer, and here's the page number function over here. We click on that, and we want to put the page number in. So we put the page number in, and I've already put the name in here at the top right, so it knows it should be at the top. We want it at the right, so I go okay, and then it adds the page number. And then if we scroll down, you'll see page number 2 here as part of the header, page number 3 here. So it automatically runs the header for every one of your pages. Now I'm going to click back.
Yeah, that's faster. That's really helpful.
Yes, that's a function that Word does. So these things you need to get used to. Now I'm going to click back into the document and see this. I don't know why that line is there. I don't believe the line is supposed to be there, but it is, so I can't do anything about it right now. Doesn't look like it should be there.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so this would be the proper way to do it. Actually, this can be, I believe this can be single spaced. I believe it can be single spaced. And there we are. Here's the title, which is fine. Pretty straightforward title. Sometimes you don't need a title, but it's always nice to have a title in there. Okay, here we go. The formulation and adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights took place at the United Nations General Assembly in Paris, France, 1948. Very nice title sentence. Clearly, we know the essay is going to be about the Human Rights Declaration, and of course, giving us some information about it is always useful. It's a landmark declaration in the history of human rights in the world, claiming to have been drafted by delegates from all countries of the world with different cultural and legal backgrounds. Very good. Landmark. Landmark is a document that, or a declaration is a landmark is something that points the way, right? So the idea of calling it a landmark document is that giving it lots of value in terms of the history of human rights. Very nice way to give the declaration value. Remember in the other essay, I can't remember exactly the words, but there was, maybe she said it was extraordinary. I don't remember exactly the other essay, but I was talking about how the value judgment of the author sneaks through. This is not really a value judgment. This is really more an historical evaluation of the document itself. And this is far more acceptable than putting in one's own point of view. This is no one should argue with this. It's definitely a statement of fact, even though it's a strong. It's not opinion. It's definitely a statement of fact. As the Declaration states, now this time it's the actual Declaration of Human Rights, so it should have the capital. Here, it's a landmark declaration, just like any other declaration. So it's not a specific, it doesn't necessarily need the capital letter, but this one is talking about the very Declaration of the Human Rights. So you definitely need the capital there. As the declaration states, and then of course there's this long quote here. Now let me show you something about this. When you have a long quote like this, which is over 40 words, maybe it's over 25 words. I'm going to check the number of words here. Yeah, this is 55 words. When you have a long quote like this, you need to do the formatting in a slightly different fashion for MLA. What you need to do is to take the quote itself and indent it. I gotta put a hard return in here first. Okay, and indent it the whole quote just like this. Set it off. So you see how the whole quote is set off from the margin. Here's the margin, and down here is the margin. But this whole quote is set into the margin. And when you do that, you take away the quotation marks because we already know it's a quote because it's indented into the margin. So we know that. And I'm going to put that in here. So with long quotes more than 40 words, indent the entire quote and eliminate the quotation marks. Okay, let me just fix that. Okay, I'll put that in green so it stands out, just like that. And since this sentence continued quite correctly, the actual reference is down here. We know it's the Human Rights Declaration because it says here, so you just need the page number, which is there. So here, as the declaration states, and then here's the whole quote. And I guess there's a word missing. Maybe people, everyone, educators, I don't know. Some kind of word is missing here. The ones who shall. who answer, who shall, right? So these people shall do all this stuff here. And then really should this quote should really end here. And when you do, I see that it's not quite written the way it should be. When you do that, when you set the quote off like this, unlike the quotes that are in the text, like this one, where the period is behind the closed parenthesis, when you set off the text like this, note that the period is before the open parenthesis. Of course, they make things a little tricky. Oh, come on. A little tricky with the formatting. But these are the kinds of little things that, as I said before, when you get them right, the person evaluating you will notice that, or should notice that. They should know these things, and they should notice that, and they should realize that you have put things in the proper format, and that's meaningful, because it shows putting things in the proper format is one of those aspects that shows respect for your reader. Yes, if you've taken the time to do things in the correct fashion, that shows respect for anybody who's going to be reading your work. And you want that. You want the people who are reading your work to feel that you're respecting them. Then they will respect you in turn and consider what you're writing with more understanding. All right, so we're not going to put this down here. I'm just going to take this out. Okay, and then let's just take a look at this again. Notice the sentence, as the declaration states, educators shall do all these different things. Then the sentence should end, and then this should really say, this is a declaration. This needs to be a sentence as well, that defines and declares the fundamental human rights that are universally recognized and considered to be protected by the nations of the world. On the other hand, this declaration laid the foundation for the subsequent definition and development of other human rights treaties. Now, this is really important. Here's where clearly the student did some research and found out that there are other human rights treaties and documents that were promulgated by the United Nations. And in fact, you should know, this is the Human Rights Declaration, the first one that we looked at, but the other documents also explain different human rights, and taken all together, the group of documents that the United Nations produced is considered to be the Bill of Human Rights, just like the Bill of Rights for our Constitution in the United States, the Bill of Human Rights for the world. So I can see from reading this that the student did a little bit more research and found out those kinds of things. Very good. First, Articles 1 and 2 of the Declaration establish the human rights concept of equality and freedom for all. And Article 2 also places special emphasis on the concept of racial equality. Very good. The main point of Article 2 is that, and here's the quote, right? Now, this one probably is not 40 words. Let's just check. Okay. Yep, it's 39 words, just under the cut of 40 words. So it's okay to run this one right in through the sentence itself. You see that? Had there been 2 more words, then you would have to block it off like this one is blocked off like that. I know this is a little technical, but this is the way MLA works. Okay. The second treaty was in some ways the origin of the International Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Remember, I talked about other documents. In this case, sometimes the document we read was called the Declaration. Some of the more legal documents that the United Nations put together, they call conventions, meaning this is convention in a sense, this is the way things are supposed to proceed. And so here, the second treaty was in some ways the origin of the International Convention on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which rejected theories of racial superiority based on racial discrimination as scientifically and morally false and reprehensible, and as leading to social instability and danger. So it's very good. This is actually what happened. The people in the United Nations got together and took these ideas that were laid out in the Declaration of Human Rights and took them a step further with other documents in order to really specifically talk about those things. Now, you notice this word, reprehensible, sorry, that is a moral judgment, but it's also probably directly from this document that they created. And so here, it's not a moral judgment by the author, by the student who's writing this. This is a judgment by humanity, by all the human race, saying that racial discrimination is reprehensible. So this is definitely an acceptable way to put things together. On the other hand, the convention emphasizes the importance of the elimination of racial discrimination and provides the theoretical and operational basis for global action to eliminate different forms of racial discrimination, and has been adopted by most countries in their policies to combat racism. Okay, so a mouthful, but a very nice sentence. In general, the second treaty guarantees that people will not be discriminated against on any grounds such as race, and provides a good start for the international community to eliminate racial discrimination, and also provides a reference for the international community to establish policies and related regulations on the elimination of racial discrimination. Lots of words there, and they are good words. Let's just scoot down to the bottom of this essay. A little long, it's okay. And look at the works cited, just so you can see. Now, here's a very nicely constructed works cited. Here's the title. It's correct with the capital W, the capital C, the S is there. Title is formatted properly. Here are all the sources. In this case, there's 4 of them. You'll notice the hanging indents in each case, properly done. You'll notice the alphabetical order of the sources themselves. Perfect. And you'll also notice the format that's followed. Here's the author, here's the title, here's the URL, here's the data was accessed. All these things are properly done. Very nice work cited. And you can also see from the work cited the kinds of things that the author, the kinds of articles that the author accessed. And here's the declaration itself. And yeah, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Okay. And again, different articles that discussed the significance of the Human Rights Declaration. Very well done. Very well done, works cited. Okay. Let's go back up here. And here we are. Oh, we did this. Here we are. The 4th article of the Declaration of Human Rights, which focuses on anti-slavery, reads, and then here's the quote, very good. Slavery has been a part of most civilizations in the world, to a greater or lesser extent, a part of human history that cannot be ignored, and has indeed played a role in the development of mankind. Absolutely. But what we cannot ignore, now, of course, we don't want the we want 3rd person only, right? So this would have to be changed. And you don't really want to start with a but. You would rather have an however in there, or a word such as that one, because it's more formal vocabulary. So here, however, what cannot, you could change this, what cannot be ignored, just like that. And you can take the we out of it, but what cannot be ignored instead of the we. See that? That's one of the ways to get rid of that first person or second person that sneaks in. Just change the way you say it. Is that the various disastrous consequences that accompanied slavery also caused great damage to the survival and development of human civilization. A typical example of which is the transatlantic slave trade. Although the slave trade and colonization helped some European countries to complete the accumulation of primitive capital, it also brought irreparable damage to Africa. According to historians, as many as 30 million Africans were sold and enslaved during the slave trade, and nearly 100 million African people died in the process, a loss of population that would not be recovered years later. Very good observation. In addition to this, the legacy of slavery and the slave trade caused great harm, such as racism and racial discrimination, as well as years of war and chaos on the African continent. So here, the wars and chaos on the African continent are being blamed on the legacy of slavery. This is just a little bit questionable. I can understand these other facts, but this one is a judgment here, one of those judgments here that the author sneaks in without clearly explaining the basis for that. Then, therefore, for modern society, the harm caused by slavery and the slave trade far outweighs the benefit it brings, and the abolition of slavery and the slave trade is imperative, which is, of course, what the Human Rights Declaration does. The importance of Article 4 is it prevented the development of slavery and its harm, guaranteed people personal freedom, life and safety, and other basic human rights, and provided the beginning of the international community's laws and regulations on the prevention of slave trade. Okay, so really what happened here is a little trip down memory lane about slave trade with some factual information in here. And so when you do this, when you cite facts such as these, you really need to cite the sources. I'm going to put that in here. Cite the sources. You can't, because otherwise the numbers could be made up. Anybody could just say 30 million Africans. Well, where did this number come from? I'm sure it's true. I'm not doubting the veracity of it. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing that you really want to cite sources, or even this. Who said this? Somebody said this. Somebody did a study or made a judgment or made a calculation to determine that these things were true. And so that's why we need that we need that kind of citation. You won't get away with saying something like this without citing the source and further down the road in your career. So definitely, you're going to put in data, you're going to put in statistics, if you're going to put in numbers, then you want to cite the sources where you got those from. And I'm sure they're real. I'm sure that all the student needs to do is cite the source here. Article 7 ensures the clause of equity before the law, which on one hand ensures that the law can be properly effective before the privileged class, and on the other hand guarantees that the common people will not be oppressed by the privileged before the law, one law for everybody. The laws for ancient societies had strong limitations. For example, in ancient China, the noble class broke the law and peasants received very different punishments for breaking the law. For example, in a slave society, even if the slave owners were stupid and the slaves would not be punished by law. This, all right, the way I read it, this is a little confusing. I think it just needs to be clarified a little bit. It's hard for me to follow this one. So I would ask for that to be looked at. Article 7 defines that all people are equal before the law, that's what I was saying, and people will not be treated differently by the law because of their class status, etc., but will be protected by the law. In general, Article 7 illustrates the universality of law and guarantees the right of ordinary people to be protected before the law, which guarantees the smooth development of society and its harmony and stability. In general, the Declaration of Human Rights is very important. This, of course, needs to be capitalized because it's the name of the document. So whenever you have it's a proper name like that, you need to capitalize it. For example, Article 2, this is the conclusion. And for example, Article 2 declares the equality between people and races. Article 4 clarifies the injustice of slavery and the slave trade and guarantees people's basic rights, such as life, liberty. So we need a comma here, sure. Life, safety, and personal freedom. Article 7 guarantees that the law can treat and hold back everyone equally. Oh, this one I'm not quite sure what it means here. regardless of their status in class, guaranteeing the harmony and stability of society and development. So here you have, look, for example, and then Article 2 declares equality between people and races. Complete sentence. So you can separate that from the next sentence with semicolons, right? Article 4 clarifies the injustice of slavery and the slave trade and guarantees people's basic rights, such as life, safety, and personal freedom. Also a complete sentence. So you can separate that from the next sentence with the semicolons, correct? Article 7 guarantees that the law can treat and hold back everyone equally, regardless of their status and class, guaranteeing development, also a complete sentence. So here you have 3 sentences joined together with semicolons. It's all correct. The Declaration of Human Rights not only defines the basic human rights of human beings and provides basic guidance on how to guarantee rights, but also provides the important guidance on which rights should be guaranteed by each country in the international community and how to guarantee these rights through legislation. Very, very nice culminating sentence to describe the Declaration of Human Rights. And then we have the works cited down below. Very nice essay. One of the things that, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, let me go back. One of the things that could be done in the essay is to cite those sources for information in that right there. Just to remind you, if you're going to use data and statistics and numbers, you really need to give the source of that. Okay. So here we have everybody, or almost everybody in class. I'm just going to go right back to my class notes and share that with you one more time, just to review. So here we are, February 2nd. We have one more Zoom class. Our last Zoom class is going to be on February 7th. And I've changed the assignments here. Essay 3 is going to be your last essay. It's going to be your culminating essay. So do a really good job with essay 3. You need the 3 sources and the Declaration of Human Rights to be in your works cited. Do your best to get the formatting correct. I'm asking that the first draft of essay 3 come in on Thursday, which is a week from today. So it gives you another week to write that. Of course, we'll have some of you will get it done before, but you have a whole week. And then if you need a second draft, if you need to do some editing, you'll have another 5 days to do that. Now, if anybody is really upset about their grades and wants to do a 4th essay, I will allow that, but you need to finish that 3rd essay first. So you'd have to hurry up about that. So there's a couple of people out there who might want to do that. And that's okay. But most of you, it seems, will be doing just fine. If you've achieved an A already on your 2nd essay, chances are you'll be able to do that on your 3rd, and that's what you'll get in the class. If you haven't, then you should work on that. Couple of people have not given me essay number 2. You know who you are. Or if you've given it to me and I have not given it back to you, let me know, because that means it's lost somewhere, or I looked at it and I thought I gave it back to you and I didn't. So let's clarify that. And I'm just looking at who's here. Yep, a couple of you need to send in that essay number 2. I did get one, Jaden. I got yours. You know that. So I'm working on that one. I'll give it back to you tomorrow.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay. Just looking at who's here and who's. Okay, we're good for most of that. All right. So anybody have any questions about what they need to do? Anything like that? Anything you want to ask about? You can always text me, call me, email me if you need any help on this essay. Try to do a really good job with this essay and we'll be happy. Okay. All right. So I'll see you all on Tuesday. Get those essays in. All right. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.